This week on the Most Innovative Companies podcast, I spoke with image architect Roach. We talked about the launch of School of Style, all things fashion, and what he thought about my Vans. We were also joined by Roach's business partner, Kent Beldon, founder and CEO of The Only Agency. How did you two first meet?
He stalked me.
I did.
I was freelance for the majority, well, I wouldn't say the majority of me, but the beginning of my career. And I kept bumping into people, like other stylists and people like, one in particular is Maeve Riley, who Kent's been her agent, I think, for her entire career. And she's like, my agent just really wants to meet you. And I was just like, okay, cool. And so I would just keep bumping into people and they just kept saying like, you know, this guy really wants to meet you. He really wants to meet you. And so one day I finally took a phone call. We had a good talk, and what made me kind of, I would say, submit, for lack of a better word, is that
Definitely not the right word.
I really felt that he believed in me. Mm-hmm. And it felt really honest when he told me, he said, I think you'll be one day the biggest stylist in the world. He said it and I believed him. But I believed it myself already. Yeah. So to have someone to kind of also second that and make you feel good. So then I signed to The Only Agency.
Kent, how did you first notice Roach?
It's a very small business, and if you're paying attention, there's no way you couldn't know who he was. And I think the first thing for me, maybe even before Zendaya, was the Celine, the sweatshirt in Paris. And I was like, and I had worked with Celine in many iterations, Celine Dion since 2000. And I'd never seen her do something like that, like such a statement. And I was like, who's behind this? And then Maeve introduced us, and I was like, and I like to think that I'm, like, definitely not creepy in my pursuits, but like, when someone says no, you want it more.
Yeah.
So
I like that. So we're going to talk about School of Style, but first, I want to talk about the job of being a stylist, because I think a lot of people don't fully understand what it involves.
No, they don't. So I didn't grow up with aspirations of being a stylist. It wasn't something, the way I grew up and where I grew up, that wasn't on the board, that wasn't on the high school, I want to be that, or, so I didn't know that stylists exist, but I didn't know at what magnitude, and I also didn't know that it was a viable career for a really long time. It wasn't until I opened a vintage store and Kanye West came in, and that just kind of like exploded, and we started to get calls from stylists like all around the world, like literally Paris and London and Milan and, New York, LA, asking for things.
Right.
And so I'm like, wow, it's a lot of these people out here. And so, I just started saying that I was a stylist and started to kind of just
kind of made it happen. Tell me how sourcing works as a stylist. You don't need to give away your secrets.
Oh, I don't have any secrets anymore. They're all, you'll know everything. Whoever signs up for School of Style, there are no secrets. But, okay, for me, it always starts with an emotion, right? It starts with the emotion that I have for trying to really figure out who the client is. And then it's the clothes that make me feel something when I'm starting the process of pulling a look for a certain event for a certain client.
That makes a lot of sense.
I feel like you're really famous for the reference.
Yeah.
He references his...
Totally.
Yeah, but it's only because I really started to think of myself as a storyteller as well. And I found out that people enjoyed it more when there was some type of reference point or some type of narrative. And so when you have a client like Zendaya, who is really, I think, one of the best at becoming whatever that story is, the character, and becoming that role. For example, her at the Met Gala, the Joan of Arc, Versace, like the face and the stature, she really knows how to just take whatever story we build and embody the character in such a good way. And so what we figured out is that that's what people really enjoy. She's an entertainer by trade. You know, technically I'm a storyteller, entertainer by trade. And so when we started to look at it that way, then that became more of the process. And then that also just kind of started to trickle down into all the other clients who were willing to play that game or play that way. So it's just more fun. You know?
Your references come from all over the place. You know, Beyonce's Crazy in Love video, My Fair Lady, Joan of Arc. I mean, what kind of media do you consume?
Social media.
You're like all of us.
Addicted. And especially when I was working, it's really bad. But I think what the power of social media is that it's made the world so much smaller. Yeah. You're able to find pages that have just references from the 80s or the 70s or, you know, the Baroque period or whatever you're looking for. You can find it. And then you just start to kind of dive into this rabbit hole and just keep going and going and going. And before you're like so consumed with all these images and references. And for me, I just kind of just mentally bank them, And
when we first spoke about School of Style, you said you actually didn't have any mentors.
No.
What are you trying to do with School of Style, I guess, to like provide stylists with guidance?
Yeah, I was very self-motivated, but that's just the way I grew up, right? And so for me, my ultimate goal is to shrinking the gap between dream and reality. You know, there's people all around the world who aren't in New York or LA or Paris or Milan or a city where the industry is so readily available. And so my dream for School of Style is to, again, shrink in that. You know, if this is your dream, you know, by signing up and taking this coursework and really immersing yourself in not only the coursework, but the Style Society, and become an active participant in this community that we're building, that gap will be lessened the more you commit to it.
Something that I thought was really interesting about School of Style, and, you know, we'll get to its ties to the Only agency, is that you not only teach styling tricks, but you also teach stuff to do with finances.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about, you know, when you were starting out, what are some of the sort of financial
horror stories?
Yeah, I want to hear the horror stories.
A stylist agent's biggest horror story.
It's something that is really rampant, for lack of a better word. When you're a freelancer, and I think not only just stylists, but other freelancers, if you don't come from a place of having financial literacy, you make a lot of mistakes. And my first year of styling, you know, I made $120,000, and I thought I was...
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No, it was really good. Coming from, you know, making $40,000 a year before, 20 or less than that.
1099, it's not taxed.
And so you make a lot of mistakes that you make $120,000 and you spend like you've made $120,000. Now, most of my spending was reinvesting into myself, into the business. You know, I was living in Chicago. I was lying, telling people I lived in LA and New York. And so I would have to take flights back and forth and hotel rooms. So, you know, after a couple years, you know, I went to the bank and I slid in my ATM and the balance was zero. And so, you know, you run into the bank like, oh my God, someone stole all my money. And they're like, oh, no. The IRS has taken your money and they'll give it back whenever they want to, you know? So it's like that. And I thought that once I was able to gain financial literacy and learn more about certain things like which type of company you should form, you know, LLC, S-Corp, and a loan out agreement and what all those things mean, I thought when we were building out School of Style that was one of the most important things to teach. I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't have a me, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to arm whoever is interested in becoming part of School of Style with all the things they need to be successful. And the financial part is one that is a lots of times skipped and you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ken, what are the biggest mistakes you see?
Exactly like Law has described. I mean, whenever we sign new talent, one of the first things we do now is advise them to get a business manager to make sure that they are you know, paying their taxes quarterly, figuring out if they need to incorporate. Because what happens is, you know, you'll come, the kids come to LA, they come to New York, they start doing well and making a lot of money, but they don't know, like Law said, they don't have the financial literacy with what to do with it. And over the years, I've seen so many people get in such trouble with the IRS and with, you know, their credit scores and just, you know, all of the financial pitfalls that you make, and that can be prevented with some information.
I also think that being a stylist has pretty high startup costs. Say I have a friend who was a junior stylist, and she was like, I remember we were told to put everything on our credit cards, right, and then return it. She was like, and one day I dropped a silk blouse.
You couldn't return it.
Yeah.
$800 onto the street.
Yes. Yes. It's a very risky business, especially starting out. And even, you know, a lot of times your success is dependent on your credit score.
Really?
Yeah, because in the beginning, like I used to do the same thing for, you know, Zendaya. Like a lot of things we would have to I would shop and, you know, she was a very responsible 14-year-old. And I was like, please, my God, be careful. Don't spill anything. And thank God she never did. But yeah, it's like you start out, unfortunately, kind of cheating the system in a way. Because if the houses aren't loaning you clothes and you have to do a job, you have to get the clothes one way or the other. And it's almost by any means necessary. So it would be, for me, it would be thrift stores and, you know, buying and returning. And even, you know, once you get more experience, you're still, a lot of times the financial responsibility is on your end. It's the credit cards and, you know, using your own, even taking things out on consignment, that's all you know, your responsibility to make sure those clothes come back the same way. And then it's like the net 90 or the net 60. And it's like, you know, now you have to make sure that you pay your Amex, you know, in 30 days, but you might not get paid for 60. So now you have that period of that you're in debt. So it's
incredibly
it's a lot
stressful.
of risk. No, it's a lot of risk and a lot of stress.
When did brands start wanting to work with you? Because I know I've read at the beginning they were not, you know, you were borrowing and thrifting for Zendaya at first.
Yeah. And good thing about with Zendaya, I also had, when we first started working together, I had the vintage store. So a lot of things she wore came from
the
there.
vintage store.
You know, it took a minute. It took a lot of hustle and being able to think quick on my feet. So the famous story is that I used to only put her in things that other people had worn. Because at that time the weeklies were really big and the Who Wore It Betters and, you know, Fashion
really,
Police, right? And so I figured out whoever got the most press got the best dress. And so I just was like, okay, well, how can I get her more press?
That's so
How
smart.
can I get more people to notice her? And so I would go into showrooms and I would just only take things that people had worn. And so week after week, she would end up in the weeklies, and 99.9% of the time she would win, you know,
wear it
so
better.
people started to pay attention, and then they started to call me, and the world started to open up a little bit more.
I mean, we were all flabbergasted, like in my office, and I'm sure all the other agencies, about how could he get her such amazing clothes. At the time, she was on a Disney show, and she was on every red carpet that somebody in her stature work-wise wouldn't normally be. She was at the Oscars. She was at the Emmys.
Yeah, we fought for that. She had a publicist at the time that used to always say that she doesn't. So let me just back up and preface this. Her parents kind of trusted me and let me do anything, including making her wear Louboutins until her feet got blisters. They just kind of just trusted the process. And so I was like, well, she needs to go to the Grammys. She needs to go to this. And the publicist, because it was a different time, right? Everything was, I think, more structured where like, oh, if you're not a singer, you don't need to be at the Grammys. Or if you don't have a movie out, you don't. And so I would plead with the publicist like, no, like, I think I know what I'm doing. I'm building something. And she would always say like, no, she just, you know, we're not going to do that. And I told her father one day, and he went to the publicist, he said, listen, I just want to be really honest with you. You work for us. We don't work for you. And whatever he says he wants her to do, you make it happen.
Wow.
And so she would just pop up at the Grammys and, you know, and she would look incredible.
Pop
and
up wearing
people
Bob
just
Mackie.
started to notice.
Yeah.
So that one thing that I was so persistent about turned into a moment that actually became a huge moment in our careers.
Every graduate of School of Style gets an interview with the only agency. How do you pick a good stylist?
That's a $64 million question. There has to be some sort of creative spark. There has to be something that, you know, I would say Law is very unique in that the Law's clients range from, you know, pop stars to red carpet to actresses, a very wide swath of talent. And most stylists are music. They focus on one thing. So it's seeing whatever their lane is and that there's something there. And then the other 50% is persistence. You know, the stylist who introduced Law and I, Maeve Riley, like we apparently had meetings that I don't remember. She was knocking on my door, knocking on my door, and then it was the persistence. And then I saw that that she had a real creative spark and just drive. You have to have drive.
And how can they find, if a stylist is coming to you from School of Style, they may not have a roster of celebrity clients, right? Like, how do you pair them, or as a stylist, how do you build
the thing
that?
about it is that even though you're getting this opportunity to sign to this amazing agency with this global reach and all these connections, you also still have to look at it as if it's your business.
Yeah.
And you still have to manage your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very active in your business. You have to, for me, it was everything that was me. It was my whole entire being is my success,
Yeah.
Like Kent, like I would call Kent and say, okay, well, we need to strategize what's next, right?
Yeah.
You can't go to an agency and just depend on the agency to do everything for you, to help, to just give you this career. You have to actively want it. You have to be proactive about it. You have to, do a lot of the work, right? You just can't. I think that's what people get, and correct me if I'm wrong, they get this thing like, oh, I signed to this agency, and all of a sudden all these things are going to start happening.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you
it's
have
a
to, like, social media is now your portfolio. Like, what does your social media look like?
Right.
Are you posting just your outfit pics and you with your friends vacationing, or are you doing test shoots, and are you creating a body of work so that when people find you, they see that? It's like you have to, when you get this opportunity to sign with an amazing agency and get an agent, you still have to be the CEO of your own company.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we plan to teach in the School of Style is that, once you do get this opportunity, like that's not the end all be all of it.
And School of Style, has been a property for a while. You guys bought it. I'm curious, you didn't attend the first one, right?
No, I didn't.
But what was the deal? Like, how have you changed it, I guess?
Well, I didn't attend it, but I had so many interns and assistants that had over the course of my career. So I was very, very familiar with it. They even actually had like a really good resource guide they had put together that I actually made one of my interns bring to the office one day early in my career. So I was very familiar with it, and I was very familiar with the success of it.
Right.
But I also was very familiar with the things that these kids thought they were prepared for and they weren't. So going into the acquisition, I already knew some of the things that it was deficient in.
Right.
Right. And so
Likewise.
When we started to go through it, it was to correct the deficiencies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Kent, what were some of the things you wanted to kind of...
I had worked with Luke since the inception when he started it, because we would...
Luke is the previous owner. Just so
Luke
our
is the previous owner, and he had approached me to acquire it. But throughout the years, we had supplied and hired many, many of the graduates, and also many of the stylists we represented helped him with coursework. So we had a really sort of symbiotic relationship. But when Law and I were really breaking it down, once we acquired it, there were many things that were outdated, not appropriate for today's world, and they weren't being taught by actually working stylists. Most importantly,
really?
the courses were being taught by people with a great, general knowledge of our business, but not on the inside of our business like Law and I are. We're like living and breathing this every day. And I think for a young kid out there, like there's no better person to be taught by than Law.
I know. I can't imagine having you as a teacher. What who are the other teachers? Or who are the guest speakers that you're getting?
Well, it's all top industry professionals. There are two that we could talk about that I'm really excited about, which we've already spoken about her a little bit, is Maeve Riley, who I think has built an incredible following and is one of the originators and purveyors of street style, which we know really can move the needle when it comes to the conversion of actually selling things and products. So super excited about Maeve and Brett Nelson.
Brett's creative director and costume designer for Doja Cat since her inception.
Very cool.
Most recently, Tate McRae, Sabrina Carpenter. He's like the go-to music guy at the moment.
Yeah, he's going to teach the ins and outs of music video styling, and I will go through like the conception of the creative direction, the conception of the idea, all the way throughout the wardrobe, which I think is so valuable because to me, he's one of my favorite. I think he's so talented.
Yeah.
And I was super excited when I heard that he was interested because I think what he brings is, like Kent said, I've been able to do everything. But I came into my career wanting to do everything. But a lot of people want to focus on music because that's where their passion is. And I think to learn from someone like Brett is like super incredible because there's a lot of things that go into a music video from when you get the treatment from the director and how to bring that treatment to life and how to let the wardrobe tell the story and be the words for that treatment. And so, I'm super excited. So I think, I'm sure he'll teach more than that course, but I think his first elective will focus on music video styling.
When did you realize, so actually, let's back up. You retired. You announced your retirement.
Yes. Did you laugh?
No, I was horrified.
You totally laughed.
I was horrified.
I'm like, what?
No, I laughed at the comment, but the announcement.
What led you to make that announcement?
I think I think I just hit a brick wall, to be quite honest. For me, I thought my career had got so big that there was nowhere for me to go other than to just do more work. Yeah. And I didn't want to just do more work, right? I had been in service of people in a certain way for so long. And, I had a family tragedy the year before.
I'm sorry.
I still always kind of felt like I had this burden of being kind of the face of what styling could look at a certain level, being a Black man, and all the things that meant. And I was tired, and at that moment I felt, not appreciated and undervalued. And again, I had done everything. I had received all the accolades. I had become the West Coast contributor editor for British Vogue. I was doing editorials. The year before that, I did 32 magazine covers.
Wow.
There's only 12 months in a year, and I did 32 covers. It was like all the work and, managing a global team. I had 4 assistants in LA, 2 in New York, 1 in London, 1 in Paris, and I was running this global business and being a CEO of a multi-million-dollar business and in the trenches every day. I mean, it was a lot. And so no one knew about that post. Literally, I had been invited to Miami to walk in the Hugo Boss show, the Boss show, I should say. And my publicist, Brett, we were in a car, and I just started crying. And she didn't even know what I was doing. I just went and I found this generic photo. I'm retired. And I posted with this thing. And, in the car, the phone's ringing. And I just wanted to be left alone. I didn't know if I really wanted to retire, but I just wanted to be left alone for maybe even just a couple hours.
And you could imagine my phone after that post.
I was going to ask you, what was that like for you?
It just became this thing that really was quite impressive and surprising to me because, usually a news story, first of all, I didn't think anybody would care.
Yeah.
And then for that story to kind of the cycle of it to last so long because it lasts like a week. I was just like, people are still talking about this. And
well, you can see what I'm wearing. I'm not a fashion person, and I was really upset for some reason.
And so I went and I know Kent didn't know. And so now he's calling and he's like, what's going on? Are you okay? And then, then I walk into the arena and Naomi Campbell's there and she's calling me to her dressing room like, you are not retiring. We need you. Like people look up, and all these things. And she called Edward in the phone and he's like, you will not give up. And all these people are calling and it's like all these messages and it's just the phone, the notifications won't stop. And it's like, I'm like, what did I do? And then I felt like I had to stand in it. I had to, if that's the decision I made, I had to stand in it and I had to live in it. And so, then it became true.
Something you said to me that I actually found really moving was you said it allowed you to be happy.
It allowed me to learn the habit of being happy because I believe that happiness is a habit and you have to work on it. The same way you work out at the gym or you work to try to eat right or you work to be a better person. Happiness is the same thing. It's a habit that needs to constantly be worked on. And I was allowed to learn that and that process.
Teach me your secret.
Well, I mean, it's you. First of all, you have to wake up every morning expecting that today is going to be a good day and that you're going to be happy. And, we're human, so there may be moments, we can't control everyone around us, but we can control our emotions and we can control the way we react to things. And we can control to constantly choose to choose happiness other than other emotions. So
yeah, it's a choice.
Once he made that decision and like as he said, he stood in it, everything sort of seemed to fall into place. It allowed time for us to focus on this, which we had been talking about for the entirety of COVID, basically.
Oh, wow.
But so busy that there was just never a time to focus on it. He had 4 Vogue covers in 1 month, like without the stress.
And I wrote a book.
Released a book.
Yes.
Like all good things came from him taking a pause and,
And I also feel
putting
powerful.
himself first.
I feel more powerful.
Really?
I feel more in control of my choices in my life. And that also, I think, helps with the happiness because I really actually, for the first time in a decade, I feel like my choices are my own.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So I'm curious, the election is coming up. I'm not asking you to share your political views. I am asking you how you would style Kamala Harris, though. What would you...
You know what? I think... Well, I don't know her, and I don't know what her personal style is, to be fair. But if I was doing a job, I think I would lean more into... I mean, she's 59 years old. She's gorgeous. She's fit. I would lean more into that.
Yeah.
My opinion is I think that younger people would enjoy seeing... I mean, because like Barack was always so smooth. And I think that Kamala has a lot of those same characteristics. And I think if she leaned more into... I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm beautiful. And I think that people would see a side of her, a little bit of some of the things that we have been searching for so long.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
Just go for it. I mean, just do it, like that's what I would do. But I'm also known as a risk taker, so and a disruptor. So, I think we're as constituents, I think we're past the traditional politics because the other side is so not traditional at all.
Yeah.
And I think
talk about bad style, I'm saying
I think that it gives her the allowance or the autonomy to kind of maybe loosen up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, she dances and she smiles and she's
I love it
definitely
when she,
friendly,
I
and
love
that's
how
a
she,
big plus.
She's always trying to get people to eat. I'm like, oh,
yeah, and she
that's
smiles.
nice.
But I think, I would have, liked to see a little bit more of a waistline. But that's just me.
I love that.
But I do that to everybody. It's such a bad habit. When I meet someone, I just give you a gaze up, from the bottom up.
Do you ever keep your eyes on something bad?
Yeah.
When Law gives a compliment, like say it's anyone at the office, it sticks with them.
Yeah.
People are...
That's what I would...
Law was coming in one day, the entire office wore their tennis core.
Oh, nice.
And I think that he was very impressed, and it made their week.
That Challenger's press tour was incredible. Some of your best work.
Thank you.
How would you fix this?
People always do that.
Oh. And you're like, pay me.
No, but
pay
let
me
me be
several
honest.
thousand.
No, I'm like, pay him.
And I talk about this in the book, right? You woke up this morning and you made a conscious decision, or even maybe unconscious decision, to wear what you're wearing.
Yeah.
And you did that because there is something about what you're wearing that makes you feel comfortable, confident, and powerful.
That's true.
So you have made the right choice.
Oh, I'm gonna say that to myself every time.
It's in the book. No, it's true.
It's in the book.
We don't, just get up and haphazardly dress ourselves. There's something about it, and I like to call it our power piece, right? It's the one thing that you know exactly how it makes you feel, you know exactly how it makes you look. And no matter how the day starts, when you put that piece on, you're automatically transformed to a place where you feel comfortable, you feel confident, and that's what gets you through the day. So although you knew that you were coming and you were going to interview me and I would be sitting next to you, you chose to wear Vans.
Well, you know why?
Tell me.
Because I thought I shouldn't. The one faux pas. This I learned at Vanity Fair when I was an assistant, and many of the other assistants there had a ton of money. I didn't. I had a second job, and I just thought the best thing you can do is not try too hard.
Exactly.
Next to a really stylish person, you know what I mean?
But also, you're comfortable.
It's true.
Right, and if you would have worn something else and you would not be comfortable, like the interview that the way you're interviewing and handling us and the questions is amazing. And had you wore something else, your hair would have not been on the interview. It would have been in your closet.
That's what I was worried about.
Right.
I did try on several pair of shoes, and then I was like, just wear the one that you know you can walk in.
See?
You know?
It's all in the book. It's all in the book. So you made the exact right choice.
Yeah, I like that.
Want to hear more? Looks like you're going to have to subscribe to Most Innovative Companies.